Do you ever feel stuck, like you are living your life on autopilot? Are you ready to shift into high gear and reach the success you so richly deserve? Welcome to the Play Big Movement podcast. I am your host, Sharon Lechter, entrepreneur, business strategist, and best-selling author. Playing big is not about settling for good enough or being comfortable. It is about reaching your highest potential and achieving your greatest success. Join me in my Play Big movement as I interview top experts in business, money, and entrepreneurship, all ready to serve you and to help you play big, be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. I am Sharon Lechter, your host. But this time we're going to just switch seats a little bit. You know Angela Totman. She's my partner and worked together for, I think, close to 23 years. So I'm delighted that she's going to join me today and she's going to put me on the hot seat. So Angela, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today about some pretty important questions that we're getting from your community and a lot of people are talking about right now. And that is investing during times of uncertainty.
And we certainly are on a roller coaster. It's been quite a few months, and certainly the week we're recording this, we've seen historic highs, historic lows, all within 24 hours of each other. So it's been enough to get people pretty concerned. And even me, you just look at it and you can't help but get emotional about big shifts in your net worth because of a change in the market. But as most of you have heard me say before, high emotion, low intelligence. And so that's why we're doing this podcast. That's why we actually are kicking off a new program. We want to help people find that emotion, bring it down, bring up the intelligence so that you can best prepare yourself and respond to what's happening in the market to protect your assets.
Thank you, Sharon. That's absolutely true. And definitely it has been a roller coaster. And on a lot of your lives recently and some of your Q&As, we're getting a lot of questions from people about what kind of strategy should they be looking at. They ask you a lot about what you're doing during times where we're seeing things be incredibly volatile. So I think just to start out here, number one is, how do you mitigate the feeling of angst when it comes to seeing what's happening in the world today and in the markets?
The first thing to do is to recognize that it's there. I mean, we have 93% of women in America are stressed out about money. 82% of all Americans are stressed out about money. And that percentage is probably true all over the world. And so recognizing that it exists and not put your head in the sand and say, what steps can you take to identify ways to calm that emotion down. And the first one is really know where you are financially. Take the time to figure out, even if the picture isn't what you want it to be, at least you'll feel like you've done something, that you've identified where you are. And then if you have a financial planner, that's great. But remember, financial planners are going to tell you to diversify across paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And I teach all asset categories. You want to diversify across real estate, paper, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, intellectual property, businesses. That's the best way to prepare yourself and to create a safety net so that when one area goes down, the other ones are there for you, including commodities, gold and silver, etc. So it's very important to really look at all your asset categories.
That's such a great point, Sharon. And you talk a lot about, and you teach and advocate for Napoleon Hill's principle that out of every adversity comes a seed of an equal or greater benefit. And so when people are looking at what's happening right now, and they might be seeing mostly adversity, what would you tell them as it relates to finding the seed of an equal or greater benefit?
Well, this is the time when seasoned investors they're ready, right? They've got cash on the side. They're ready to jump in. And certainly, you've heard the adage, buy low, sell high. Well, during times of high emotion, people are selling low and buying high. And that's exactly the opposite of what you want to be doing. So make sure you're getting educated, you're getting the right kind of advice. Great time to have a mentor, but also concentrate on what you're invested in. I teach all the time when you're talking about a time of uncertainty, a time of recession or almost recession, a correction, and we have a correction in the market, is when people start looking at how can they recession proof their portfolio. And there's something called the 5 Gs. I want to go through those. The 5 Gs of things to invest in. The first one's ground, real estate. There's only so much of it around. So it's a great investment to have to help soften any landing that you have. And then there's grub. We all have to eat food. That's something that is a staple. So people, as long as there are people here, we have to eat. And then guns, safety. When there's a concern and uncertainty in the wars around the world, we'll see strength in the protection industry, guns and ammunition, and then gas, utilities. We still need to be able to power our houses and our cars. And so gas and utilities is another relatively safer environment to be invested in. And then the last one is gold, commodities, gold, silver, precious metals. You'll see if you look at the history of the price of gold, it's never been higher than it is right now. And that's because of the uncertainty in the markets. And so it used to be that we were on the gold standard and Nixon took us off of that. But the gold is really an area where people really flee to gold and silver when they are concerned about the equities markets.
And Sharon, these different categories, you've talked about categories of assets, you've talked about the 5 Gs. A lot of people might be thinking to themselves, well, it's still just too scary. Maybe I'll just sit it out and wait and see what happens. They might be thinking they'll be able to time the right time to get back in or to become active again. What would you say to people who might be considering this strategy?
Well, that's one strategy, but you can't win if you don't play. And if you are in a situation where you feel secure about how you're invested, great. Knee-jerk reactions are never good in any direction. But it's really important to not put your head in the sand. And that's why we've launched this program that we're going to be doing. And if you're watching or listening to this after the program, we can certainly talk about replays. But it's really important to get the information when it's happening. And that is something that you either put your head in the sand. If I wasn't paying attention to the market, I would not know that this week we were from the highest high, the lowest low to the highest high and now low again, all in 3 days time. And so that's something that helps me make the decisions that I need to for my own personal finances, my own investments. And it's important to not ignore it, not to hide from it, but to understand what's happening so that you can make decisions that are right for you and your family.
And Sharon, you mentioned what has happened this week, and this would certainly be considered, short term, what's been happening. How much weight do you put on what you're seeing over several days or maybe a week versus how much you're thinking about your long-term strategies?
Well, and what I'm going to say may come across political, but it is intended to just be factual. It's taken us decades to get into the mess that we're in with the amount of federal debt that we have in the United States. We're not going to get out of it in a month or a week. And so the decisions that have been made are tough ones that other presidents haven't had the courage to do. And will they all work? Who knows? But by trying to get more fair trade agreements between other countries, it really rocks the boat a lot. And that's what we've been seeing. These tariffs have caused tremendous volatility in the markets. But at the end of the day, The intent is to get manufacturing back in the US, to have the US more independent when it comes to chips and oil and gas. All of those moves strengthen the underlying economy of our country and are needed. But it's not going to be comfortable. Change is not comfortable for anyone, but dramatic change, which is what we're seeing right now, is not a comfortable place for any of us. However, steering the ship through this uncertain time is going to help us get to better waters and better relationships and better control over our domestic resources and being able to be independent. I mean, the fact that a lot of our medicine is made in China has worried me for years. So hopefully we'll be seeing some of those things change as well. And it's very important for all of us to pay attention to. It's the long game. It's a very painful short game. But again, the uncertainty of that is that midterm elections are in 18 months, and so if this administration hasn't been able to make it look much better in 18 months, which it might be hard to do, it may very well be that someone else comes in and he loses his power. The president loses his power because the Democrats take over House and Senate. And so that's the time frame is very uncomfortable to get things to really make a big difference. However, today, and again, whenever you're watching this, the inflation report came out and it's the lowest it's been in a long time. So again, we're in this roller coaster and nobody has the crystal ball. But the intent is to get us to a point of more financial and resources independence.
Thank you, Sharon. And you talked about on this interview already the importance of diversification across asset categories. Is there any other rule that you live by or operate by when it comes to investing, or that you advise other people as it relates to how they're deciding what money to put in different types of investments?
Sure. I mean, I was on a 2.5 hour meeting yesterday about some real estate investments that I have in a development that's being built. I seek knowledge. I want the experts to help me. I consider myself an expert, but I still want to make sure I listen to all the pundits to find out what they see, because they're living it every single day. And so I'm just absorbing every bit of it now, because that helps control the emotion. And don't try to do it on your own. Make sure you have mentors, make sure you're finding resources, and don't just listen to one resource on the news, because we know how crazy the news can get too. So look at several different resources to see what their predictions are, what they're looking at, and then make the decision that's right for you. But hopefully that emotion has come down and the intelligence has gone up.
Thank you, Sharon. And I think that one of the things that you share often as it relates to the emotional reaction and getting the information is understanding the source as well. You already said it here, get more than one source, but also be sure that it's credible. And are they speaking from a standpoint of facts, or are they speaking from a standpoint of narrative?
That's so true. And, the internet's great because you got everything at your fingertips. The problem is they're not all vetted. So it's important for you to do your homework and due diligence to make sure that the person you're listening to has earned the right to be advising you.
Now, you talked about starting a course coming up here. And so we're recording this interview in April, and coming up in May, you'll be starting this program. And if you're listening or watching this after the launch of that program, please reach out to us, because there are other ways that you can participate and receive this information. But Sharon, talk a little bit about this course that you're launching in order to be able to continue to support people and answer the call to address the uncertainty that many are experiencing right now.
Well, certainly. And I made that decision to do that because when I see such angst, you need to solve a problem, serve a need. So starting in May, every 2 weeks, I'm going to have a session, 8 sessions, so for over 4 months. And I'm going to be talking about how to invest in uncertain times. So we're going to look at all the different asset classes. I may actually bring in some of my mentors, some of my advisors to come in and talk about what they see happening in each of these worlds. And it's important to get that education and to know that the people that I bring on will have been vetted. I will have total respect for them, and I want you to hear from them as well.
And I'm really excited about this course. Certainly, I get the benefit of being here side by side with you as you're creating this information. And I really think that the variety of topics you cover in these 8 sessions and combining the information and the knowledge on the how-to as well as the mindset is so important. So just to give everyone a rundown of what's going to be covered in this particular program, session 1, the power of your mindset. So Sharon, talk about why mindset is so important in everything that you teach.
Well, everything we do is controlled by what we think. There's 3 things we can control: our thoughts, our words, our actions, and it all starts with our thoughts. So if we have stinking thinking, if we have a lot of negativity in our brain, we're going to make bad decisions because that's controlling our words. And so if we're scared about something and we're going to say negative things, and that's going to generate negative outcomes. And so every time I teach anything, it is as much mindset as it is money training.
Absolutely. And you'll also be covering embracing uncertainty with confidence and then the psychology of money. So continuing on with some of the mindset, but how can people think about gaining confidence in a time where there is so much uncertainty?
Knowledge. You get confidence by getting rid of the as much uncertainty as possible. And you do that through study, research, listening to people. That's why I'm doing this course, to help people understand things that they can be doing that they may not know they can. And that's exactly the reason I'm putting this together.
And the next 3 topics or sessions that you cover really all go hand in hand. And that's practical and proven strategies to invest in turbulent times, understanding that risk is not your enemy, and then mastering your emotions, which I love all 3 of those topics. So this course obviously builds one session to the next. And then building your personal financial strategy and moving forward with purpose is the final 2 sessions. So I think this is going to be a really powerful opportunity for people to really get not only some practical tools, but also to learn how they can shift their mindset, not just for what's happening today, but information and tools that they can use well into the future.
Oh, absolutely. And it's also going to give you ideas of things that you might want to start thinking about creating and to expand the assets that you own. And so we're going to be talking about that. And really, the world has changed. I was literally this morning listening to a webinar on several different topics, but one of them was on having virtual events. Well, we do a lot of virtual events, and I was just flabbergasted by what I heard from this expert of all the new tools and things that are available now. So you have to stay on the forefront of your industry, and it's something that is very important. And with things changing as fast as they are, you have to put in the time and effort to learn what will support you in continuing to build your wealth.
I love that, Sharon. That's such great input and advice. And so if you're watching and listening to this podcast, uncertainty, whether it's today or down the road, there's always going to be some level of it. Sharon, thank you so much for sharing with us your perspective on how to address uncertainty and the importance of knowing how to invest in uncertain times. Any final parting words you'd like to give to anybody as we wrap up this particular segment?
Well, we're going to do a smaller segment for the Facebook group, the Play Big Movement. But to wrap this up, I invite you to share a little time with me and let me share the things that I'm doing and the knowledge that I'm learning, as well as the people that I talk to on a regular basis, so that you are armed with the information that you need to do to provide a safety net to understand your own risk, because some people are willing to take more risk than others. And certainly that can be because you don't have family. It might be because you're young. You can let it roll. Somebody that's in their 70s, like I am, I used to have a lot more risk willingness than I do today. And that's just simply because of stage of life. And so it's important to understand those as well and make those decisions that's right for you. And to make sure you are paying attention to who you're listening to. Because at a time like this, there's a lot of conversation over cocktails, a lot of conversations over lunch. But who are you listening to? Make sure somebody that knows what they're talking about.
Absolutely. And we'll put the link to the Investing in Uncertain Times program in the show notes here as well. You can also email us info@sharonlechter.com if you're interested in learning more. So thank you, Sharon, so much.
Well, thank you. And thank all of you for watching and or listening to this episode of the Play Big Movement podcast. Thank you so much. You're fabulous. Thank you for listening to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. Please subscribe to iTunes and leave us a review, as well as join us in other areas of social media, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn @Sharon Lechter, and for Facebook, author Sharon Lechter. Thank you so much and have a fabulous day.